Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. This week, I've got my mom, dearest. Hi.
Hi.
Can you show a bit of energy like I'm happy?
Hi, Anna. Hi, Anna.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to be having a conversation with my mom, and we're going to be talking about staying in your lane. So as I've mentioned so many times, and my sister and I did a video of so many things that we learned from my mom. So we are hoping that today she can share some of this wisdom with us. Like Titus 2 says, look for older women who can help you to learn. They will give you wisdom. Look at my mom's eyes. She's rolling her eyes. But I'm so sure you guys are going to be learning a lot today. So hi, Mommy.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for finally doing this with me. So to start off, can you just tell us about staying in your lane? I know for you, you are one person who used to do your things individually without looking at what other people are doing. How did you do
that? Tough question. It wasn't so easy, but I guess you could say one person who always researches about what I want to do before I actually do it. So being a mathematically minded person, I look at figures and things that make sense to me are things that are probably in figure forms to say, okay, I want to do this. What's the end result mathematically in the end for me? If I find that it is a good thing for me to do, then I just stay focused. I don't have a problem of sidetracking. I know sometimes temptations may come along the way where you start thinking, maybe what I'm doing here is not the best. But as long as I keep focus on my figures that I have calculated and seen as the result of what I'm going to do, it helps me to then stay focused. To say, when I do this career, what am I expecting to get in the end? Am I going to get money? Maybe if I'm talking about a career, salary-wise, what's going to be the end result? Like I would say to you, like when I chose to be an accountant, I'm a multi-talented person. Could have been a teacher, because that was also one of my passions. Could have been an accountant, because that was one of my passions. So what I did is I look at the figure to say which is the one that's going to pay me better in future to give me the kind of comfortable life that I always desire. So to me, it was the accountant route that I saw had more money. So I'm just giving an example of saying, what do I mean by figures?
Okay, so your journey was tough, right? You started from literally the bottom, and then you rose as the years went on. And I want you to share some of the things that kept you going, because I know you loved helping people. You liked helping someone who doesn't have keys. And for you, that probably meant there's some things that you needed to put aside. And I know growing up, I used to see you take everything to God. And I want to hear your story to say, how were you able to take everything to God in times maybe where financially things don't make sense, or you see an opportunity coming and then you think, okay, instead of putting my money in this opportunity, let me use it to help someone who needs some fees paid, or someone who doesn't have a meal, or who cannot pay rent. How did you do that?
Okay, I guess some of those things came from experience, because they say experience is the best teacher. So I'll tell you about the one for why I have a passion for helping people who cannot pay fees. When I was doing my O-level, my father was involved in an accident. And when he was involved in an accident, that was the term that we were supposed to pay the fees for my O-level. And back then, in those years, O-level, the importance of O-level in Zimbabwe was like a degree. You did your O-levels and you actually got a job after O-levels. So when my father got involved in that accident, it was so bad that he was actually bedridden. He had to be in hospital because he had broken his leg. And my mother was not working. She was a housewife looking after us. So she could not afford to pay for my exam fee. So it was like, I'm just looking at this situation where you think, oh no, this is like the end of the road for me now, because what am I going to do? Am I going to get the fees? And then my father's young brother, my uncle, he's late now, and his wife, who's still alive, they decided to pay for my fees. That gesture was just so important to me. It made a huge difference to me, because then I knew that in life, you need to help other people who are in situations where they need fees. In fact, it just grew that, I don't know if I can call it a desire, but it is something that I vowed in my head that as long as I was alive, I was going to make sure that if I met anyone who has a problem with fees, paying fees for them to carry on with their lives, I will make sure that I help them as much as I can. So on the issue of paying for fees for people, that's where my passion comes from. And whenever I see people who are disadvantaged, maybe some ladies who have made a mistake in their lives and they want to pick up their lives, they think this is the end, I try to do my level best to make sure that I encourage them to go to school. And if they identify any school that they want to do, I'll make sure that I pay for them. I remember one particular time I went for a funeral in my husband's family. He had a cousin sister who attended the same funeral. Then at that funeral, one girl came to see her, and I didn't know her children. So this girl was just a very pretty girl. So she came and spoke to her, and I said, "Aunt, who is that who was speaking to you?" Then she said, "That's my daughter." I said, "Wow, she's so pretty. What is she doing?" And then she said, "Well, she's just sitting at home. I've got other kids and I can't afford to send her to school." I said, "What has she done?" She says, "Well, she's finished her O-level and she wants to do a secretarial course at Harare Polytechnic." So I said, "How much is the fees for her to do that secretarial course?" And then she said, she gave me a figure. And that figure, as I told you, I'm just mathematically minded. So I quickly did a calculation on my budget to see what line item fits on that figure. And I saw that the line item that I could remove from my figure or sacrifice from my budget was making my hair. So because then for my budget line item, I would say hairdresser so much. So I said to myself, okay, if I really sacrificed this hairdressing amount every month, this girl could actually go and do her secretarial course, because it was just going to do for a year. And I made a decision right there and then that that's what I was going to do. So I told her, "Please call me on Monday and let's talk about this." So the mothers introduced, I said, "This is Murora. This is my Murora. I don't know how to say these things in English." So so she said, And then so we started talking with the girl's name. I decided to make that sacrifice. So every month I would take my hairdressing money, send her to school, pay her for her school fees. And guess what? God made sure that I never went without money for making my hair. In fact, from that time onwards, I actually had more expensive hairstyles than I ever did before. So it taught me one thing, that when you make a sacrifice to help somebody, God always comes through. There's that verse where it says when you actually help a poor person, you have borrowed from the Lord, something like that. I don't have the verse right here with me, but there's a verse like that. And I think I lived that verse. And from then on, it gave me courage to know that God is looking just for an opportunity to help people, but he can't do it himself. So he looks for people who are willing to do that, so that the moment they make their sacrifice, God comes through. And I have discovered that's what God does all the time, because every time I do that, I help, God brings this person who needs that school fees in my life. I give that person that sacrifice. That person's life becomes better. and mine never changes. If anything, it actually gets better. So that gave me courage to know that sacrificing for other people is just God's opportunity to help them. So he will use you to help other people. So it has become kind of like my lifestyle to know that if God has brought somebody in my life who needs my help financially, especially for school fees or for food. And on the issue of food, this is how the food thing came about in my life, my experience on the food. When I was married, in our early years of marriage, my husband was working for the government. I was working for the church. So our salaries were not really that huge. And we had brothers and sisters who needed to be sent to school. So our life, we're living on a very, very tight budget. And we had made up our minds with my husband that we were going to help all our brothers and sisters to find a job, go to school, get a job so that they have their own life, so that they don't have to depend on us for the rest of their lives. So we made that decision right from the time that we got married. Our wedding money that we got at the wedding, it's sponsored to send our brothers and sisters to buy school fees stuff for them, and also to pay for their fees. So doing that, it meant because with those many responsibilities and also raising our own family, it was a very tight budget. And I remember one time things got to be so tight that we wondered to say, wow, how are we going to even survive the next day? And there was this lady whom I worked with at the office one day who was used by God. Yes, I had kids then. This one particular time, just one of the incidents, it's not the only incident, there are several incidences. But this one particular incident, I left home. I used my last cent as the bus fare to get to the office. I didn't know how I was coming back from work that day. And when I got there, I sat in my office and I said, Lord, I don't even know how I'm going to go back home today. And as I was sitting like that, this lady, her name was Marjorie. I actually named the middle name of my last name, Marjorie. Yeah, because that lady, she stayed in my mind because of her helpful heart. Then she just came into my office with her hand folded, and she handed me a $20 bill. And then a $20 bill could buy a lot of stuff in Zimbabwe. And I said to her, how did you know that I needed this money? And then she said, well, I don't know. I'm sure you need it because God just whispered to me that go and give Alice this money. And God said, go and do it now. You know, and that was the same time that I was telling God that I don't know how I'm going to go back home. And God made this woman stand up from her chair and go now. That's what God said to her. And so several other experiences. I know, like when I had my last born, I had this couple who actually noticed that I was pregnant and I was eating food, which to them, because they were Americans, thought it was not well balanced. And they decided that every lunchtime, they were going to bring me lunch. So every day they made a balanced lunch for me, and lunchtime at work until I delivered the baby. And then they stopped. Wow. So I'm just saying to you that I've seen that there are times in life when people go through things that are beyond their control and they can't afford some basic things. So those experiences, I believe God was teaching me to be a person who remember other people in the days that I would also have plenty. So as a result, in my life's journey, helping people has become just part of my life because of the many experiences that God has put me through in life.
Thank you for that. And I think just seeing you help people has also helped me to have the same passion, though I did not know I had it growing up. And I think one of the things you helped us with is you always shared your testimonies with us. So we always knew that we don't need to hold on to what we have. And like you said, God blesses us to bless others. It's never for us to do for ourselves, you know. And like you shared to say that woman also needed to obey God. You know, the Holy Spirit is always working. He can send you wherever. You are not even thinking of it, you know, like You'd have worked for it the whole month, but God would be like, use that money I've given you to help someone else. And I meet people who then say, I like what you mentioned about how you've got gifts and that's what you've used in your life. And there's a verse that says, your gifts will make room for you in front of great men, to say, he's the one who's going to multiply by just using your gift. And I meet so many people who are also so focused on the financial benefit when it comes to everything. Do you believe God blesses us beyond finances?
Oh, yeah. God blesses us beyond finances. Because what happens with God, one thing that God has taught me, because I have had for these 50-something years of mine, God has taught me quite a lot. And one of those things is that, when you read the verse about tithing in Malachi, where God says, try me and see. And that's the one thing that God says, try me and see. If I will not give you blessings that you won't have room enough to contain, And so the blessings that God gives are very different. They are not just monetary. They can also be blessing, like having your children. I'll tell you one thing. Whenever I was pregnant and I was expecting, it was not those days where, like today, where you people are told what sex your baby is and all that. For me, I would always tell God the sex of the child that I wanted. Lord, I want a daughter. And believe you me, for the 4 children that I have, God heard my prayer and I've always got the sex that I asked from God. So I learned that the things that you ask from God, God will give you. So even in my life, as I was growing up, I would pray for my children to say, Lord, help this child to do this, help this child to do this. So the blessings that I saw God giving me were not just monetary. They are also in my family over the things that I desired and wished. And so I know that all you need to do is just to ask God. And like God says, if you obey me, you do the things that I say, then you ask, God will certainly hear. That's what I have believed, that God does that. And I know the most important thing that the Bible teaches us is that we need to obey in order for God to also be able then to listen to our requests. And when we obey him and we walk with him day by day, then his will and our will become so intertwined that it is just the same thing. The things you desire are the things that God also desires to give you. So definitely it's not monetary. You can get blessings of children, blessings of not going to hospital, blessings of being protected from many things. And so there are plenty. The blessings are many. They're just not monetary. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I want to ask you, when it comes to your Christianity, you talked about praying for children and everything you wanted them to become. I remember you also told us from the moment you conceive, you start praying for us. Up until even we leave and we get married, you add that person to your prayer list. And I want to ask you, growing up, obviously, we're not always the best children. In the times that you saw that some of us were not going in the path that you wanted, what kept you going? Because I now talk to a lot of moms who will be like, my children are so naughty. Some of them do not even want to have anything to do with God. What kept you going in those times we did not want to listen to you, or where we did not appreciate the word of God?
Okay. What kept me going was just my friendship with God, my relationship with God. One thing that God taught me in my readings and all was that when it comes to worshiping God, that's an individual decision. That even God himself in heaven had children who rebelled against him. Lucifer was one of his children and he rebelled. So it is very possible that a parent can do everything which is good, but the children will still decide something different. So that's one thing that I learned. But I also learned that you don't just give up on your child. As long as a person is alive, there is still hope. And the only person who can influence a person to change their lifestyle in the way they should go is God. So what I did is that if I see that a child was going wayward, I would pray. Because like you have already rightly mentioned, I pray for my children daily. And so each time that I wake up every morning, before I start anything, I have to mention my children by name, and I have to tell God the things that I desire for them in their lives. And so I would then mention to God, say, Lord, as you can see, this child is going just haywire. And the road that they are taking is just the wrong road. I don't know what I can do. I don't know what you can do, but I pray, please help me to get this person in the right direction. And as I speak to God, God will also give me ideas, like, okay, maybe talk to them about this, or do this, say this, or, at particular times, God will then prompt me to say this or do this, or maybe God will then just bring about situations where maybe at church somebody talks about the very topic that your own child is struggling with. And so, when children hear things different from other people, even though you have spoken to them about the same subject or the same topic, they might not even listen, but they will listen to what the other person has said. So I saw situations where God would bring topics to be discussed in other fora where I was not there, where it was someone else saying the same thing that I would have said. I remember even at one time, you came to me and you said, Mama, so said this and this. And I said, but I've been telling you that so many times. Why is this like something new to you? But I said, anyway, and thank God that at least you have had, And so it was, it's a journey where you just have to ask God to give you wisdom, because wisdom comes from God. And there's that verse in James where God says, does any of you lack wisdom? Let him ask of God, who gives unto all men liberally. If there is something that I've done, is to always claim that verse. Because for me, I always believe that I don't have wisdom. Wisdom can only come from. So I just say, Lord, you know yourself that as your child, I don't even have this wisdom. It's completely absent in me. But anyway, you have told me that I can come and ask for it. So give me wisdom. So he would give me wisdom to know how to behave at each stage. I know, like with one of the children, there was, both children can really test you. There's one child who really did, but I can't even say one. 3 of you actually gave me problems. There was only one who was not giving me problems. The 3 of you gave me challenges all your way. So one time you can get your phone call where someone will say, hey, do you know what your child just did? Your child did this and that and that. And it will be something that is supposed to make you collapse. But because I would have spoken to God, I would not collapse. I would be so sad. Oh, okay, thank you. After they said thank you like that, then I go to God and say, Lord, how can this be happening? How can my child do this? Then I go saying, Lord, please help me. So each time at each stage, I would then ask God for wisdom. And I saw that in circumstances where I was supposed to be panicking, God will give me such calmness. That verse in Philippians which says, peace I give unto you. Peace, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. That peace, God will give me peace, and people would wonder, how come this woman is acting so calmly? It was simply because God then always held my hand. And Mrs. White is one of the people that I really thank, because her writings made me to have that confidence, especially the book Steps to Christ, to know that God cares for us. God is not just interested for us in us talking about scripture and verses. He wants to know the things that are actually challenging in our lives. And he wants to help us to actually solve those things, so that when we solve them, then we will have more confidence of knowing that he is actually our Father. So this particular child, it would have been, I think the easiest thing for anyone to have done was just to give up on the child. But God told me that don't give up. Keep looking for alternative ways to help the child. So each time each of you gave me challenges, I learned that I needed to try different ways of trying to help this student. And I've discovered it works. So don't give up. And one of the things that Mrs. White says is that many people think that it's punishment that helps a child to go on track. But she says, no, it's not. It's actually love. Love is the thing that actually helps. And so I would say to mothers who think their children are too much of a challenge, whether they are on drugs, whether they are on what, just pray. Ask God for wisdom, and God will tell you what to do at that particular time. Do not use other people's methods as your ways of solving problems for your child, because each person is different, and maybe God might have a completely different method for your child. And what you need to do is just keep praying. For me, it was praying and looking for solutions, looking for ways to say, Lord, what can I do now? What can I say to this child now? And God always walked with me step by step.
That is so powerful. And I'm really glad you did not give up on any of us. Like, I never thought I would end up being in ministry, helping people because of something that I saw you do. And at that age, I just thought, oh, this God thing is so overrated. But it was your example that helped me to know that, God is real. And I remember even in my struggles, I was always like, God, if you could do this for my mom, you need to also do it for me. And like you said, that it's an individual thing, but it's the love that you give that helps people to also know that God has a plan for each person, and it's not determined even by you as a parent. And if you could love us so much, extend the same grace that God extends to us. So my final question to you is, what encouragement can you give people right now who are going through a hard season, the death, the FERMA, the fires, everything? Like, some people are being attacked left, right, and center. As a person who says you've got a relationship with God, what would you say that could keep someone encouraged?
One of the things that I have learned in my life is that we should learn to just know that God is in our lives all the time. God is in control, no matter how bad the situation might be around you. In order for you to keep sane, you need to talk to him. You should just express. Take, for example, when you think you're feeling low, tell God I'm feeling low. When you think God is handling you unfairly, tell him, Lord, I think here you are just being too unfair. Put all your wants, your desires, anything, your fears, everything before God. I have discovered that God is real in life. So when he is real, the thing that helps you to be able to go through difficult times is your trust in God. How much you have been building your relationship with God. Because you discover that when you are in hard times, you will know that those hard times are the things that will teach you to know that God can actually be dependent on, even on hard times. He can decide to just give you or supply your needs on a daily basis, not for 100 years to come or for several months to come, but for that particular day. God can decide to do that method. Or he can also give a method of just giving you everything at one time to see you through the next several months. God deals with us individually, differently, because we are all different individuals. So a person needs to know that whenever you are going through anything, as long as we have spoken to God about it, it is fine. God is going to find his own solutions to help you. So even when you're feeling like everything is crashing around you, read your Bible. See other people who have gone through similar experiences, because the Bible is full of example of experiences that have happened in other people. Those experiences have been written to encourage us in our Christian way, so that we can then see that, oh, okay, so if I face this situation, this is what God is going to do, and this is what he did for this person, this is what he can also do for me, or he can even go beyond that. But the most important thing is to express to God how you feel, what you are going through. Do not hide. You don't have to be a very perfect person. You just have to be as you are. One of the things that I know I vowed in my life to teach my children was that I was going to teach my children to know that God is real. He's not just something that we read about in the Bible. He was not a God of Abraham. He is a God of us also, a God of me, a God of you, a God of any other person. So that's why I made it a point that as you guys were growing up, I would tell you every experience that I was going through with God, so that you could then see and learn to know that God is real. He is not something that we are just talking about what he did for Abraham, what he did for Jacob. We talk about what God did for me. So therefore, when I speak to God about people, I prefer to talk to God about what God did for me. Because what God did for me, I discovered there's something that you can't dispute. He did it for me. I have this evidence. I have this experience to say, and I believe it is the most convincing thing that you can tell a person. So as people are going through these difficult times, losing loved ones, and also maybe losing their jobs, just trust in God. Just know that he is your father. He cares. Tell him exactly what you desire, exactly what you want. And God will address your situation just the way he knows best. When you say you trust in God, it means you trust to know that he is a father who is able to make decisions for his children and give them whatever is best for them at that particular time. That's one thing that we must never, ever forget. If you need to eat, he will give you food. One problem that we have is that we think that our sources of supply from God are just one. Take, for example, if I'm working, I look at my boss to think, this job, if it goes, and who is this boss chucks me out, then wow, my life is finished. That's so wrong. That is just only one way, one other among thousands of ways that God can provide for you. Your job is just one of the ways. But that doesn't mean that's the only way. God has many thousand ways of providing for us. You could be sitting at home, not having a job, but still being able to have your children go to school, still being able to meet your monthly rent, still being able to eat your meals daily. So God will just be trying to show you and teach you that it's me who supplies, not your boss, not your job, so that at least you know where to direct your commitment and love to. Your commitment should be to God. But one thing that I can tell you is that God will never, ever leave us to suffer things that we cannot handle. And sometimes also, some of the experiences of suffering that we go through life, they are meant to help other people. Just recently, it was yesterday, it was not yesterday, but the day before yesterday, I had gone to one lady who had lost a husband, and I was trying to see her just to comfort her. And then she says, as my husband was sick, I saw the lesson that I learned from you and your sister when you guys went through the illness of your child. There were many things that could have happened. This child that the lady was referring to was my sister's child. My sister's child suffered from cancer, which was a very protracted process. And we went through several treatments and many things that we tried to do. But in the end, the child passed away. And she said, you guys, I admired the way you guys remained faithful to God. There were many things that you guys could have done. And there were many people who had suggestions to say, go there, do this. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try going to witch doctors? Why don't you try doing this? But you guys remained steadfast with God, even up to the end. And she said, I learned a lesson from that. So when my husband was sick, I told God I was going to remain faithful to him, just as you and your sister had done. So some of these experiences that we go through, you never know. God does it for you to be a lesson for someone in the future. When we went through that experience, we never knew that there was someone out there who was watching. So suppose we had slipped up and decided to go to these prophets who say, come here, I'll heal, come here, I'll do this. That person's faith would have been shaken. But because God gave us the strength to remain faithful, even in the suffering, even though it meant death, we became a lesson book for some other people. And this lady was just one of them. I don't know how many other people were taught through those experiences. So what you are going through could be a lesson book that God knows that this one, if I give her this temptation, she'll be able to pull through, and many other people will learn from her life. Can you imagine how many people have learned from Job's life? His life experience has become a lesson book for many, many Christians, generations to come. So what you are going through could just be simply a lesson for somebody else.
you so much. Now you guys understand where I get the talking too much from. It's from my mother.
Yes.
She
Sorry
was
about that.
talking, but now we have learned a lot. I think that's what I love mostly about you, that you are so real. You share your stories, and that's what we can relate to, because people want that practical part and not just the theory. And if there's anything we want you guys to take from this, God blesses us to bless others. God is good in good and in bad times. Like Mama mentioned, that no matter what situation you're going through, we are called to be ambassadors of Christ, and our situations are always helping other people to know about him. We are put here on this earth for his glory and never for ourselves. So it is important that when God blesses you, don't keep it to yourself, bless others. Thank you so much, Mama. You'll definitely be coming back. You're quite a wise woman, and there's always a lot to learn from you. And we can't wait to have you again. Finally, we got to do it. We've been wanting to do this for so long. So may God richly bless you, and bye, everyone.
Bye.